a year and a half ago when I went to Kashmir, I found some of the best human beings I've ever come across anywhere. Lot of positivity. But this is before the Pahalgam.
Pakistan did this to be in the center stage again. A military response will be implemented first and then announced.
As one of the most iconic leaders of our Indian military, what is the proof that the Pakistani military and the ISI play a role in this?
In this attack at Pahalgam, the handlers are ISI.
So the Pakistan military is involved in this terror attack.
Pakistan military is the one that is controlling their country. As it's well known that every country has an army, but it's Pakistan army that has a country. 1971 war, they suffered a very humiliating defeat. Then they waged deliberately a policy of death by 1,000 cuts. Using the religious affinity, they started sending terrorists across the LOC. Till 2014, they would always cover their faces when they resorted to stone pelting. But in 2015, Burhan Wani with 9 of his friends, they posted their group photo with AK rifles on their Facebook page. The shift is that using the mobiles, the youngsters would mobilize support, rush out to block the army convoys. They helped terrorists escape at times.
Oh my, okay. So one of the core concerns for the whole planet is the possibility of nuclear war.
First of all, decision to launch a nuclear weapon does not rest in the hand of the Pakistan Army Chief. Pakistan today is considered as an epicenter of terrorism by the world. If it does too much of nuclear saber rattling, it will become a global pariah.
Do you have any message for the average Pakistani?
To the average Pakistani, I would like to say, we are not your enemy. Your government is your enemy because they have been adopting such policies that have been killing our people.
Very important episode for every single Indian and Pakistani that understands English, but this episode has been recorded keeping the global audience in mind. It's going to be a bit of a geopolitical 101 video. It's going to be a bit of a history special on the Kashmir conflict. It's going to be a real world emotional input from an Indian Army veteran. It's Lieutenant General Satish Dua. He's one of the most celebrated soldiers in the history of the Indian military. He served the military for close to 40 years. He served in Kashmir. This conversation is an attempt to extract the real world perspective on what it's actually like being on the line of control, what it's like serving in Kashmir. But I hope that it reaches every corner of the world. We've kept a global audience in mind. I hope you extract truth as well as value from this episode, because truth be told, I think we're heading into some very chaotic times from the India-Pakistan perspective. This is Lieutenant General Dua on TRS. I hope this episode helps spread the truth. Thank you. Lieutenant General Dua, honor having you in the studio with us. Normally, I start these episodes with a hi, how are you? Started with pleasantries, but considering the context of our times, I think we should first express our condolences. So, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Ranveer, for inviting me on your show. I would like to begin also by expressing my condolences to the families of the victims of this ghastly tragedy in Pahalgam. You know, in my life, sadly, I have paid homage to so many soldiers whom I have lost under my watch when I was a commanding officer, when I was in the field, or as a corps commander in different ranks. So my heart goes out to all the people.
Yeah, so I've probably done more than 35 or 40 military-based podcasts, and you're probably one of the most decorated people we've had on the show from the military. I think this is also one of the prices that one pays in order to be decorated, that you've just seen a very long tenure and you've seen good days as well as bad days. Um, this particular episode is going to be emotional. It's going to be a very real account of Kashmir. But I'm hoping that the global audience that follows TRS from all over the world, America, UK, Pakistan, parts of Africa, parts of Australia, all of them gain context on Kashmir. Because there's a certain kind of context you can gain in theory from watching, say, someone like Palki Sharma or from watching YouTube videos. And then there's a whole other real context you can gain from talking to gentlemen like yourself. So, are you comfortable with that modus operandi?
Yes, certainly, Ranveer. See, I'm also very happy to, I'll be very happy to share what I know. Within the limits of my ignorance, I will be happy to share the context because, unlike the media people, I'm a practitioner. I've been in the field. I've grown up in that. I started as a second lieutenant, 4 decades of service. I rose to the highest ranks. So, and all my experiences in Kashmir. I'm also from the Jammu and Kashmir Light Infantry Regiment, which means my soldiers, all my soldiers, are drawn from J&K. So I have a better understanding because in every village I have soldiers serving or retired.
Okay. We recently did a podcast with Major Desai, who's a military veteran. Part of that podcast was snippeted, and
Right,
I'd put it up on my Instagram.
right,
It was a part where we were directly calling out the Pakistani military and the ISI for their role in the Pahalgam terror attack. What kind of broke my heart a little bit was that as an Indian content creator, yes, you had some Indians supporting that clip, but you had a majority of a lot of educated Pakistanis uh, kind of being against that clip, saying, "Hey, where's the proof that the ISI or the Pakistani military was even responsible for the Pahalgam attack?" But I genuinely believe that the Pakistani military and the ISI are ruining the lives of people on both sides of the border, creating chaos on our side and ruining the country in terms of administration on the other side. My question to you, sir, as one of the most iconic leaders of our Indian military, what is the proof that the Pakistani military and the ISI play a role in this?
right. Uh, Firstly, as of today, there are only about 120 residual militants left in J&K. And out of these 120 terrorists left in J&K, the bulk of them are foreign terrorists. When we say classify terrorists as foreign terrorists and local terrorists. Local terrorists are those local Kashmiri boys. In fact, in this attack at Pahalgam, it has been proven. Now the NIA has it's been 1 week already, and NIA has conducted the National Investigation Agency has conducted the preliminary investigation already. Two are the local boys. Two of them are local boys, and rest are Pakistani terrorists. And not only that, this morning news has it that one of them is is a ex army special forces guy,
From the Pakistan
Pakistan
military?
Army. His name that has come out in the newspapers, I was reading this morning, is Hashim Musa, and the news article that I've read in Times of India says that he has been loaned to the terrorist organization. And in the past also, we have, in my experience, we have come across such people who are either too radicalized and they want to do something and they want to come across. So there have been cases where people come across. We've had a lot of such cases in the early 90s. So it's clearly established that this is not only it is Pakistani terrorist. I'll just finish by giving you a very important piece of information. Any such high profile operations, I say this as a military man, any high profile operations like this are always cleared at the highest level. So link it with the speech that Pakistan Army Chief gave 3 or 4 days before this Pahalgam incident took place. And I'm sure everyone has heard that speech, how he speaks about Hindu, Muslim, and being different, and how their nation was formed. So clearly, this has been cleared at the highest level. And not only that, they are Pakistani involvement, it has actually been cleared at the highest level from their side.
Yeah. The context here is he basically said that, hey, it's good that we separated out. It's good that our grandparents separated out
Yes.
because Hindus and Muslims can't coexist, which is a lie, according to me. according to many, many Indians. Because we've seen a flourishing society filled with all religions. And here you have leaders of the Pakistani military actually using religion as a tool to influence uneducated youth as well.
Absolutely. We can live in amity with each other as our Muslim population is more than the population of Pakistan. So we understand what we are talking about.
Yeah. Where is the average local Kashmiri mind at right now?
Yeah.
And perhaps I would separate them into two categories. The tourist hubs like Srinagar, Gulmarg, Sonmarg, all these places, but also in the interiors, the countryside. Is the mindset loosely the same? Are there still radical mindsets? Are they still anti military? How are they perceiving Pahalgam? And how are they perceiving whatever's going to happen over the next month?
Right. Before we talk about what's going to happen, but that's a very important part. But how, to your question about the Kashmiri mindset, there was the inflection point was 2019. In 2019, when government took that bold step of diluting Article 370 and made J&K on par with other states.
Context for global listeners.
Yes.
What is Article 370?
All right. Article 370 is a constitutional provision which defines the relationship of Jammu and Kashmir, which used to define the relationship of Jammu and Kashmir with the Indian state, a little different from others. How different? The J&K state was allowed to have its own flag. They had their own penal code. So, these are the kind of things that was allowed for J&K. Now, this was a provision that had been worked out in 1953, a few years after independence, between the leaders of the state and the center then, and I will not try to get into that detail.
Loosely, the history is that when the British were ruling over India, they had tied together many princely states. Therefore, when the British were leaving, the princely state of Kashmir took some time to fully assimilate with the rest of the Indian geography.
Yes.
And that's why Article 370 is even a topic in 2025.
It is, because it gave leverage to the political leaders of J&K, that they, as if they were the bridge between the central government and the people.
Yes.
So, with the result, their provisions being different, the state did not get the due development that it should have. Like other states progressed, the state didn't progress that much. So, that's where in 2019, when this bold step was taken, now, and the state was also divided into two union territories. The idea was that central government would be able to administer and bring about some changes that uplift the people, the local population. And in the last 5 years, 2019 onwards, we've actually seen the difference. There has been so much of peace, calm and quiet compared to the earlier days. The schools are open. There are no bunds, that is strikes. Earlier, the Hurriyat used to issue a calendar. Markets were unpredictable. Whether markets would open or not, the tourists didn't know. Because whenever there is a band was announced at the drop of a hat, and markets was closed. So, all in all, that affected the lives of common people. And in the last 5 years, we've seen, like I started saying, peace. We've seen a lot of development. We've seen so much investment pour in, not only from other parts of the country, but also from abroad. And the youth are today getting to live like youth anywhere else. Imagine you being in a place where you don't have a single cinema. There was not a single cinema in Kashmir. Today there are multiplexes. There were not a single chain of restaurants there. Today you have KFC, you have Haldiram, I can't name all of them, Domino's. You have all those restaurants there, which youth aspire to use.
Yeah.
So with that kind of changes coming in and on the other side, the infrastructure, the electricity, the water supply has increased so much. There is 100% electrification today in Jammu and Kashmir, all the villages. There are so many premier educational institutions have been created in the last 5 years. So the youth, the people have started to enjoy the peace dividend. And the last thing, tourism has grown by 425%.
I have to give some human context here, sir.
Yes.
As a traveler from Mumbai to Kashmir, as a social media personality, I put it up on my story that I was in Srinagar. Eventually, a gentleman, he figured out which hotel I was at and brought his two teenage sons to meet me. And they actually asked me for career guidance. And the father told me that I didn't have these kind of opportunities in the early 2000s when I was trying to set up my career. And I'm the happiest knowing that my kids are getting those opportunities.
There you have it.
This is an educated man speaking. His kids are very street smart and they were asking me entrepreneurial questions. They were asking me, this is 14-year-olds, what kind of business can we start while we stay within Srinagar? If we were to leave Srinagar, what do you think we could do? What are our strengths as Kashmiris? These are the questions that they've asked me. Very nice first principle thinking oriented questions. And I left Kashmir thinking about how much potential lies in that land, both as a tourist destination as well as a business hub. So a lot of positivity there.
Yes.
And I hate to bring this podcast to the next chapter. You know what I'm going to ask you.
Yes.
Because I really feel the Pahalgam attack has pushed Kashmir back by 5 to 6 years, perhaps more.
Yes.
Because it's a very obvious human emotion from the rest of India that we will be a little afraid to go to Kashmir now. That's the truth. And we have to call a spade a spade. So, I mean, I have so many questions about the Pahalgam attack. My first obvious question to you, again, for the sake of listeners outside of India especially.
Yes.
I would love for you to give some military context on what transpired on that day. And if you could shed some light on the response that's being orchestrated, that would also be helpful.
Sadly, Ranveer, yes, we have to confront this issue. First of all, what happened? Just for everyone's sort of understanding. Pahalgam, like Gulmarg, is one of the major tourist attractions in Kashmir Valley. It has a couple of very beautiful valleys. Tourists throng to Pahalgam. In Pahalgam, there is the Pahalgam town. There are some Lidder river that is flowing by. There are a couple of beautiful valleys. There are several good treks to go to. Now, Baisaran Valley Baisaran Meadow. It's a beautiful bowl. You have to drive for about 10 minutes on vehicle. And from there you have to trek up. You have to walk up or take a pony if you can't walk. Another 30 minutes of walk will get you to this meadow, which is a very favorite place of trekkers. Then there are trekkers who actually walk further across. Or in that meadow, there are many touristy activities. The whole families can participate in. There are some nice amusement things. There are restaurants that spring up for a few months. There is a zip line and those kind of adventure activities, pony rides and things like that. People have a good time there and come back. On 22nd of April, as crowds thronged to that place, there were these 5 or 6 terrorists who came and opened fire. Not only did they open fire and kill tourists, they actually identified and segregated Hindu males. They did not kill the females. They killed Hindu males. They segregated them by their things that they wore. They actually asked them to recite a Quranic verse, Kalma Pado, and then they killed the males and told the ladies, their wives, their mothers, their daughters, go and tell Modi. It was done with that kind of malevolence. Well, By the time security forces reacted, it obviously took some time, and the terrorists then melted away.
Sorry, sir. I don't think many human beings in our country understand terrorists the way you do because of your tenure in the Indian military. What was the mindset here? One layer deeper.
So, like I said to you once earlier, such operations, such high profile operations, are cleared at the highest level by their handlers. Their handlers are across the border.
And the handlers are working with the ISI.
The handlers are ISI.
The handlers are the ISI.
ISI.
What is the ISI?
ISI is the intelligence service of the Pakistan army.
Okay. So the Pakistan military is involved in this terror attack.
So Pakistan military is the one that is controlling their country. As it's well known that every country has an army, but it's Pakistan army that has a country. As is often said, yes, Pakistan military is involved.
Within the modern history of Pakistan, the military is the administration as well, is the government.
More than around half the time of the 70 years that they've been in existence, it has been the case overtly, the Pakistan military chiefs have been the rulers. And the other half, when they have a political leadership, it is the army that calls the shot from behind the scenes.
Okay. Puppet leaders.
Right.
Okay. Now coming back.
So it is hard to believe that they did not realize that it will invoke the wrath of the Indian government, the Indian people. There will be a very telling and a significant response from India. But I suspect they took a leaf out of Hamas's playbook. Why did they do that? You remember the Hamas attack of 7th October on the Nova music site. The carnage that they reaped on tourists and people who were enjoying a music party, a music fest on Israeli invitation. I have been there a couple of months there and I've seen what they've done over there. Hamas very well knew that the Israel response will be swift, will be brutal. But why did they do it? They did it because Israel and Middle Eastern countries were on the path of rapprochement. Abraham Accords were signed and Hamas feared that their issue will be marginalized. And they wanted to gain the global focus, put the global spotlight on themselves again. Coming back to this. Over the last 5 years, we've discussed how the state has been thriving, tourism has been increasing, commercial development has been taking place. People are moving towards normalcy, happy with the orderliness of their lives. Thus, Pakistan started feeling a diminished relevance in the affairs of Kashmir. That they could not stomach. That was not acceptable to them. And that is why, while 2 or 3 months ago, they started fomenting trouble in south of Ir Panjal, you saw there were few encounters, terrorist encounters, killings here and there. But they realized they have to do something spectacular in Kashmir Valley, in the heartland. And they did this to get as if Pakistan wanted to be in the center stage again. And then there is another theory. The theory that the Pakistan Army Chief, General Asim Munir, he also wanted to establish in his own polity, in his own dispensation, a place for himself. There are rumblings, the political instability that continues between parties. The most popular leader, Imran Khan, is in jail, is in prison. And so he wants to also consolidate his position. And then that is why such horrific attack was perpetrated.
So for his own political ambition, he decided to take the lives of innocents?
So I'm saying it is a combination of everything. Getting Pakistan to be more relevant in Kashmir, having his own position, to consolidate his own position. There are talks that even that if when the situation goes out of hand and between India and Pakistan, he might create a coup and seize power. So now there are rumblings within Pakistan to also what is happening in Pakistan. The Baloch rebels and the Pashtun rebels are creating so much of a nuisance for the Pakistan military. They also want to divert the domestic attention towards such issues. And Kashmir always has been the glue that binds Pakistan. Even a child is taught the slogan of Kashmir Banega Pakistan. That means Kashmir will one day be our territory. And children, when they don't even know where Kashmir is, they shout that slogan. So, that is the kind of dynamics that is at play.
It's a lot of social engineering as well.
Oh, yes.
And I know for a fact that India's painted as a supervillain in the hearts of many uneducated Pakistanis.
Yes. A lot of Pakistan media today is the way you're saying. The social media today is the way you're saying. But also, there are several sane voices coming out, especially in the last 1 week, that this act has been inhuman, that this will push the country, Pakistan that is, into an abyss. This has made Pakistan an international pariah. So those voices are also coming out now.
Without getting into the details too much, sir, I would love for you to shed some light on the Indus Water Treaty and the Shimla Agreement and why they are important, geopolitically speaking, for the times that we live in right now.
Right. So let me just talk about the Indian response, because Indus Water Treaty
Sure.
is one of the things. So our response has to be significant, because when we lost 18 soldiers in the Uri attack, terrorist attack, we launched what is now called a surgical strike, a shallow strike to terrorist camps. I planned and executed that. It was very shallow, 2, 3, 4 kilometers, and we hit the terrorist camps and came back.
Love
When-
and respect to you.
Thank you, sir. When we lost 40 CRPF Jawans in the Pulwama attack, the country launched a precision airstrike deep inside Pakistan territory at Jabba Top near Balakot. But this carnage of tourists who come from all over the country, innocent tourists, I think there our response is bound to be very significant. It's only begun. It's only just begun. So we have to have, I think our response has to be three-pronged. First is the response to terrorists and the terror ecosystem. And I'll come back to that. The second response has to be to make sure that we do not, just because Hindus were segregated over here and killed, in the rest of the country, we do not sort of fall at prey to their designs, terrorist designs, of them trying to create a Hindu-Muslim divide. We should not have those incidents, because there have been some instances in the rest of the country where Kashmiri Muslims were beaten up and things like that. We have to stop that. If we don't stop that, then the terrorists would have succeeded. And third is the tourists who have come in greater hordes by year on year in the last 5 years. Many Kashmiris make a living out of that. Many have taken loans to buy an additional car to run as a taxi. Many have taken a loan to construct 2 additional rooms in their house for homestays. People have got involved in tourism because it became suddenly a very thriving industry. Overnight, that has been wiped out. And so I think it is incumbent that there has to be some outreach from the state, from the government, from the powers that be, to make sure that they don't suffer the brunt of this. Because we don't want people, again, to falling, their children in poverty might just fall again towards militancy, towards terrorism.
Perhaps that was one of the main goals of this attack. Let's destroy the tourist industry so that poverty spreads. Poverty creates fertilizer for terrorism.
Exactly. So that's it. Now let's get back to the first main thing. What should our response be? A country's response is diplomatic, economic, and military. Diplomatic response has been rolled out by the government in the very strictest of terms. Indus Water Treaty has been suspended. Now, you asked me what, just to give a very broad concept of Indus Water Treaty. First, let it be known that we did not, India, as an upper riparian state, because rivers flow from India into Pakistan. We've had 3.5 wars. Kargil conflict is a half war. All through, we have never used water as a leverage because it is going to hurt the people of Pakistan. But this time, I think the government has taken a decision. Enough is enough because nothing seems to matter to them. Where our innocent lives are being lost over and over the decades, in Punjab, in J&K, I think that's where the strong step has been taken. The Indus Water Treaty has been suspended. So what does it mean? As of today, we, it's not a tap that you can turn off. We have to create capacities. We have to create those capacities to be able to regulate the flow of water to our liking. But as of what has started happening, we are not duty bound to share any meteorological or hydrographic data with them. That we stopped doing. I believe a couple of days ago, suddenly there was a rush of water because of some rainfalls in the valley, and water flew into Pakistan. When they were expecting a drought, suddenly there was a flood. Things like that. We will not allow Pakistan. Earlier, observers were allowed to come into some of our facilities and monitor that we are not utilizing or diverting the water. We will not allow those anymore.
What's the distance between LOC and the facilities?
No, that varies. It is
Okay.
at some places it will be just a few kilometers inside. Some places it is 100 kilometers inside. So that there is a Wular barrage, there is a Kishan Ganga River project, which are deep inside. So that varies.
Okay.
So all across these three rivers of Indus, Jhelum, and Chenab, these three rivers, India was to utilize only run of the river water, and we were entitled only to 20%, 19.58% actually, and rest was supposed to flow to Pakistan. It does flow into Pakistan, but let it be known that this water is the only water that Punjab in Pakistan, you also belong to that part of Punjab, I also belong to that part of Punjab, for that Punjab in Pakistan, which is the heartland of Pakistan, this water is the only source. And it is going to be very tough on them. So that is the first step taken. The other diplomatic steps have been taken. The mission staff, that is the high commissions on both sides, their staff has been cut down by 25 personnel. The defense advisors have been recalled, or their advisors have been sent back. So our diplomatic relations are at its lowest ebb.
Ever.
Economic. As it is, we didn't have any trade except for some humanitarian, I think some medicines and some pharma products we were supplying to them. I don't know what will become of them. And the water issue alone will be a big economic punishment for Pakistan. And the last response is military. I am sure there will be a response, but military responses are always at a time and place of our choosing. We'll talk about the nuclear response later if you have to, because they've started talking about it. But just purely military response will have to be at the time and place of our choosing. And the difference is the diplomatic, economic, political, or any other response in all these fields, a decision is taken, announced to the world, and then implemented. A military response will be implemented first and then announced. Obviously, we can't put it in public domain.
Okay. Do you have any message for the average Pakistani, not the military?
I think to the average Pakistani, I would like to say that we are not your enemy, because our people to people contact are always full of warmth, whether it's a cricket match or when you meet the diaspora outside. So many countries I've been in. I've served in three embassies for 3 years. I've served in Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos. We meet the Pakistani. It's very easy to connect because deep down within 75 years, 70 years, 7 decades ago, we were the same people. My parents have come from that side. So, uh, people to people, I want to say that we are not your enemy, and we never try to use water as a leverage. I think to them, I will say, your government is your enemy because they have been adopting such policies that have been killing our people and sowing hate and discord in our country.
And rest be assured, the generals on our side of the border will not ever give commands to go and kill innocents on the other side.
Absolutely. You said it.
That is Indian ethos.
We always care for that. I write in my book, when Mr. Parikar came to my office, the day we lost 18 soldiers in Uri in 2016, when he greenlighted our cross-border raids into terrorist camps, the surgical strike, he still said there should be no collateral damage. That means we should not kill any civilians.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of ethos we live in.
I think on this side of the border, humanity matters more than religious fervor,
True.
generally speaking.
Humanity. India is a country. We talk of Vasudev Kutumbakam. The whole world is one family. That is the kind of ethos that we live in. We have lived in. Our culture throughout through the centuries has been this.
Yeah. And here, I think the main difference is on a societal level, the average Indian most probably grows alongside people of another faith.
Absolutely.
Our cricket team has its Mohammad Shamis as much as it has its Shikhar Dhawans.
Absolutely.
Okay. Sir, could we shed a little light on the Shimla Agreement for the rest of the world again? What is the Shimla Agreement?
So Shimla Agreement decides many protocols between the two countries. After the 1971 war was over, we returned those prisoners after there was a Shimla Accord. It was between President Bhutto from Pakistan and Prime Minister Indira Gandhi from Indian side. It was held, the meetings were held in Shimla, and that's why it's called the Shimla Agreement. It was decided, essentially the spirit was that from now onwards, we will try to foster, or we will endeavor to foster, friendly relation between the two countries and not have wars between the countries. The ceasefire line was then converted into the LOC, the line of control. Now, what has happened after India said we hold the Indus Water Treaty in abeyance? The Pakistan government has announced that we do not recognize Shimla Agreement anymore. We suspend that. That is actually counterproductive because you're saying that there is this line of control. So now we don't have to respect that line of control.
We can come into
We
your
can
land.
come and do, yes. So you see, earlier at least there was a modicum of a line of control. Sometimes it was prickly, sometimes they were firing, sometimes ceasefire violations, but mostly there was a line of control which is identified on ground. The time will tell why they are doing such things. They are already talking, the nuclear saber rattling has started. They try to always use the nuclear blackmail card. They've already started doing that. So I don't know if there is an intention that we don't see.
Okay. Anything you want to say about this nuclear aspect?
So essentially, India and Pakistan both are nuclear states. We have nuclear weapons and we have the delivery means. So Pakistan always uses the nuclear card. In the Kargil conflict, you can imagine they actually intruded and sat down on our territory, our posts, the mountain peaks. and we were trying to evict them. They started using the nuclear card. And US had to get involved very actively. President Bill Clinton was in the White House, and they actually mediated because the world is worried. The world is worried if two nuclear neighbors have a conventional war. And that is why a great effort was made by American mediating that conflict does not sort of expand beyond Kargil, beyond the place where they had intruded. And India showed great amount of self-control by not crossing the LOC, not only by soldiers, but even aircrafts. Fighters, we did not cross the LOC. So they've used this nuclear card all the time. In fact, I've posted today on Twitter and social media, I was speaking at a channel, is it sometimes you get a feeling as if they want the West to intervene.
Pakistan?
Yes. As if they want the West to intervene and take them out of this morass.
Okay.
From this prickly situation now.
I think they might need it this time as well, considering so many of their soldiers are resigning apparently.
Yes, that's another dimension. We still haven't spoken about the dynamics in Pakistan, how people are revolting, like you rightly said, so many soldiers are resigning.
Yeah, because I think through YouTube, for the first time, you have Indian conversations reaching the average Pakistani. So they're understanding that point of view better for the first time in history. And it's not simply, has-been news anchors screaming on TV.
Yes.
Those signals don't reach Pakistan, but that's the power of modern day YouTube.
I'm glad. I hope our conversation, your conversation will, I'm sure, reach them. And you have, I'm sure, viewership there. We need to tell them that what their leaders are doing. People to people, we don't have enmity.
Yeah.
It's their policies.
Yeah. Specific to this conversation, we're highlighting the Pakistani military. I think the average Pakistani is starting to understand who the real villain is.
Let me give you a human side of this. I write in this book an incident, India's Brave Hearts, an incident where before all this trouble started, as a captain, I was posted in Kupwara on the LOC. This is 1983. And like you said, sometimes our posts on the LOC are very close, shouting distance. We shout across. And those days, there was no militancy, no terrorism. So relations were pretty okay. And on the Eid, a day before the Eid, one of the JCOs shouted and asked us, अगर हम आपको सेवैयाँ दें ईद पे तो आप खाएंगे?
Offered you dessert.
Because that's the traditional sweets that one offers on Eid, their biggest festival. They said, will you eat it? And he also said, I will taste a little bit from that bowl before I give it to you. So trying to assure you, what he's saying is that trying to assure you that we will, it's not poison or something. We told him, please give it, Saab, with the JCO. Give it to us. We'll be happy to eat it. We'll be happy to partake of that. And you don't have to prove it by taking a spoon.
This is the average Pakistani that I have met as well.
Those days, they used to get good in their tea rations. And they would actually shout across and ask us for some sugar, sometimes rum. You see, even as professional soldiers, in Kargil, so many times they did not accept the body of their soldiers back. They said, no, these are intruders. They are not army soldiers. And they didn't accept the bodies. My regiment, the Jammu and Kashmir Light Infantry Regiment, has Kashmiri Muslims. It has Muslims from all over J&K. We have Maulvis. And our Maulvi did their last rites here in our country. So we give that respect to a soldier. Always.
I think based on some of your past podcast appearances in the Indian podcasting space, people at this point know that you were involved in what the Uri movie was based upon. Pardon me for bringing up the movie reference point, but that's how the general audiences understand military operations in a lot of ways. Without getting into the details of that too much, I think my question to you, sir, would be about J&K in general, the quick history of J&K. Um, let's start near the beginning of your tenure. And how did this story unfold through your eyes?
Right. So, allow me to give you a broader context a little before that.
Sure.
I won't limit it to start of my journey because my journey started in 1979. But I like to take it from 1971 because 1971 war was an inflection point in the history of Pakistan. That's the time where they suffered a very humiliating defeat. In two countries were created out of one. There was a formal surrender ceremony signed by their top generals. 93,000 soldiers laid down their arms in a parade, and that video keeps playing on and on. And that has hurt the psyche of Pakistan. Also, then, leaders like General Ziaul Haq realized that they will not be able to get better of India in conventional terms. So then they waged intentionally this policy of death by thousand cuts, this proxy war. They decided that they are going to use terrorists as a matter of state policy. And they started first with Punjab, and then and now we come to J&K. In 1988 onwards, 88, 89, it started in earnest in J&K. Please remember that is the time also when in Afghanistan the Soviet troops were pulling out. When Soviet Union was pulling out, during the Soviet Union's occupation for nearly a decade, with US help, Pakistan helped uh, train and nurture and arm resistance fighters, the Mujahideen there. Now, suddenly, those freedom fighters were free. And then they decided to shift focus towards Jammu and Kashmir. Punjab had been solved, and now they turned their focus towards J&K, using the contiguous borders and ideological religious affinity. They started sending terrorists across the LOC.
Okay. Just want to mention something here, sir. I was in Kashmir about a couple of years ago. Had the honor of visiting one of the posts of the Indian military, which is very close to the Gulmarg skiing point.
Yes.
There's a higher point you could
Higher
go to
point.
where there is an Indian military post.
Yes.
Simply walking to that post was difficult in that kind of climate, with those kind of temperatures. And I was also told at that post that this is one of the easiest posts to get to.
I,
What about the ones which are further out?
I was going to say that. I've been there. I know the post you're talking about. I have walked from Gulmarg to Punch. So I've been to those posts. But you're right. Those are one of the easiest posts. The altitude there is about 10,000 feet or between 10 and 12,000 feet. There are posts at 21, 22,000 feet. So there, like you said, walking is difficult. There, human beings find it difficult to breathe because of lack of oxygen in the air. And mountaineering expeditions take oxygen cylinders, whereas soldiers, Indian Army soldiers, are actually walking with weapons in their hands.
Yeah. Let me just tell the average civilian listening to this episode that it wasn't easy even being there for 15 to 20 minutes. Despite wearing 3 or 4 layers of clothing, despite having a heater nearby, it was extremely discomforting for me being an average civilian. So kudos to the Indian military personnel. But then that gets you thinking about the more extreme posts, and that also helps you understand how that part of our border could be porous as well as difficult to operate within. I would love for you to shed some light on this, sir, as well, because this is something that the average civilian doesn't understand.
I'll be glad to, because we need to improve this understanding in the minds of the viewers. Like you rightly said, only who has been to such areas can imagine it. For just an explainer, the, the LOC runs along mountains, nalas, streams, rivers. It is thickly forested. It is most of it is snow covered for about 6 to 8 months, depending on the altitude in a year. So that increases the terrain difficulty all the more. And in such areas, when there are streams flowing down, nalas flowing down that join the rivers and thickly forested areas, it is very difficult to keep a watch over over every inch of the ground. So we establish on the LOC something called posts. What are posts? Posts are a group of bunkers where you dominate the area. And similarly, the Pakistan Army does it from the other side.
What does dominate the area mean?
So dominate the area is you dominate it by fire and observation. One, on a top of a mountain, a peak, if you establish a post, which is a group of bunkers, so about anything between 10 to 30 men are staying there, depending on its importance. They can look down into the valley. They can look down on all over sides. So they have good observation. If anyone is passing by, any enemy incursion is attempted, you would know. And you can also dominate it by fire. Then you can actually fire your machine guns. You can fire your weapons to stop, to dissuade an intrusion. That's the way we do it. But that is for larger body of troops. If 4 people want to sneak in through the nalas, sneak in through the dense foliage, they would be able to still do it. So for that, ever since 1988, when this infiltration started, then we've had to devise different strategy to block infiltration, and that's the counter infiltration grid. So that increases our degree of difficulty. We have to be on the post on the higher peaks to defend the LOC, but we have to go down into the lower reaches, our patrols and ambushes, to counter infiltration.
I'm very aware of who I'm sitting in front of, so pardon me for any kind of casualness I bring to this conversation, sir. But there will be some emotions that come through. Again, I had the pleasure of meeting some officers who were serving at some of the posts which are far away. It takes them a couple of days to get to those posts which are
Yes.
far away. And it's a very, very intense, for lack of better words, hike. They have to go through a lot, very less sleep. It's possibly one of the most difficult parts of being in a modern day military. I was told that there are some posts where the Pakistani posts are less than 50 meters away from the Indian posts.
Yes, there are.
So you actually have to see soldiers from the other side all the time, and there are interactions as well. There are aggressive interactions as well, in terms of abuses being hurled, etc. And that is what the average civilian doesn't understand. That yes, there is the enemy, but the enemy is two-pronged in this case. That is the intention with podcasting with so many military leaders. I want the raw truth to be out there for people in Mumbai, Delhi, and Bangalore, especially those of whom allow their political opinion to filter their viewpoint on the military. Tell them the truth, sir.
So, like I said earlier, you're right. You're absolutely right. Because we need to be on the mountain peaks, on dominating heights, to guard the LOC. But as far as countering infiltration is concerned, because those are small groups of 4 to 5 terrorists, we need to go down also. So that stretches us very thin. When you have to go walk down a nala or a stream or through the mountains, through the jungles, it takes a long time. Then you have, on the likely infiltration route, you establish ambushes. You lie in wait. If the infiltrators come this side, we will be able to nab them or kill them or eliminate them. So there lies the difficulty, a contradiction of holding the heights and also dominating the low-lying areas. And it's a very long border. The LOC is 780 kilometers approximately. It's a very long border. The difficulty made, the 780 kilometers, if you walk 1 kilometer in Mumbai or Delhi, and if you walk 1 kilometer in the mountains, you would take 8 times the time. That's the kind of difficulty we're talking about.
Does the Indian military view the Pakistani military as two-pronged, where you have the actual soldiers, the officials, but you've also got these terrorists who are carrying out proxy warfare?
Yes, that is the case. Pakistan military matches our military. I mean, they are in the post like we are in the post. They guard the LOC from their side like we do. But, and basically, the Pakistan Army and the Indian Army are, offshoots of the British Indian Army. They've gone away from here. But these terrorists are a different ball game. Now, why do I say that? Because, firstly, these terrorists are drawn from different parts of Pakistan, POK. And in my days as a colonel in early 90s, we used to even get Afghani terrorists, like I told you.
Really?
Yes, Sudani. We've eliminated a Sudani. Their identification. So those are those so-called Islamist mercenaries in a way. So they actually come here fighting for that cause, or fighters without a cause. So the terrorists, as far as Pakistan Army is concerned, ISI is the one. Uh, ISI is their intelligence service, which actually controls the flow of terrorists, their training, their equipping, and they control the operations launched by them. So, so that's why, like you said, we are operating at two levels.
I think let's go back into the history, sir.
Yeah.
This is for the global population
Right.
again. Let the world know the truth about the Pakistani military and the ISI.
So I was telling you that they launched something called Operation Topak, that is a death by thousand cuts under General Ziaul Haq.
80s?
Late 80s. Yeah, 80s, yes. Ziaul Haq came to power in 77. They started off by that time. Initially, they trained their guns on Punjab, supporting the Khalistani movement, Bhinderwale and the gang. And then eventually, between 85, 86, and 87, we got Punjab under control. And when that happened, like I brought out, 87, after 1987, essentially 88, 89, they started fomenting trouble, sending those mujahids freed in Afghanistan, started sending them across the line of control. And then started the initially insurgency and then essentially terrorism, the wave of terrorism in J&K. We've seen very violent times in early 90s. What we did, that is the state response, we actually had to pump in more army and establish a counter-terrorism grid. We raised Rashtriya Rifles. Today, it is the largest counter-terrorism force in the world. In fact, in my book, I write about this, A General Reminiscences. I write about all this, the rise and ups and downs of militancy and terrorism, and what our state response has been. So we raised a counter-terrorism force. We also raised a contra-rebel group. We got a lot of surrendered terrorists to raise a group called Ikhwan. Now, Ikhwan, this group of surrendered terrorists, helped army and the Rashtriya Rifles and the J&K police to bring insurgency under control, terrorism under control. They worked well for about 9 years. And after that, we wound them up and had fairly good successes, but then we tried a very bold experiment. You know, there are contra-rebel groups all over the world, but what we did, that has no parallel. We made a battalion of my regiment, Jackalai Regiment. We made a battalion of surrendered terrorists, a territorial army battalion. And the soldiers of that battalion did extremely well. So that has been as far as the state response is concerned. But the terrorists, on the other hand, ISI, their planners, have also shifted tactics. Somewhere in 2009, 10, and 11, they started using stone pelting in addition to terrorist violence.
Sorry, sir. I'll have to pause you here. Okay. Let's kind of summarize what we just spoke about and dive a little bit into the psychology behind terrorism a little bit. 40 years that you've served now, how many terrorists have you come across in person?
When I was a commanding officer, you see what happens in the army is, up to the level of commanding officer, you are in the field you have a weapon, you are fighting encounters. I've done that as a major, I've done that as a colonel.
You've been in combat as well.
Oh yes, my first book, India's Brave Hearts, I write all the stories about our combat, my soldiers' combat, all the stories of my being in combat, how God has been kind. I've had a very close shave a couple of times. I've lost men in combat. I lost 2 majors and 6 soldiers over a period of 3 years when I was a commanding officer. I have seen many terrorists come across their dead bodies. I've seen fallen soldiers. So I have been through that phase. Since you asked that if I've seen terrorists, I told you about having eliminated many Afghani uh, nationals, one Sudani.
How did that guy land up in the
So
subcontinent?
there are some who go for that greater cause of Islam. They feel they want Islamic caliphate, and they are fired by that. They're radicalized with a different kind of a zeal.
But from Sudan to the subcontinent.
Oh yes, when Afghan uh, resistance started initially for Soviet Union, many fighters came. Like what is ISIS? ISIS tried to create a caliphate of Islamic caliphate larger than countries' boundaries. And people from different places, even from India, there has been some recruitment. So people have gone there. So this does work. It works that way as far as some of these Islamist radicalization is concerned.
Yeah, they think they're doing good for Islam, but they're also giving Islam a bad name.
True.
Their lack of education is being radicalized. That is what I've understood over the course of all these military podcasts. So. But I would love for you to shed some light on exactly this. Fair to say you've come across more than 100 terrorists, either living or dead.
Yes.
What is the commonality you saw in all of them?
Bulk of them, if not all, are very, I would say, very radicalized. They seem to be motivated for their cause, even if it is wrongly placed, as far as we see it. A number of them are actually we found them high on some nasha.
They
Also,
were intoxicated.
not intoxicated, if some afim or something. They use that. For example, terrorists. A terrorist would be typically a person who's ready to give up his life, blow up wearing a explosive belt. Are those guys who are radicalized on one hand, and on the last day also they are under the influence to be able to then just charge and do something and harm themselves.
Opium.
Something.
Opioid.
Yes.
Okay. What's the average age of all these terrorists that you've come across, roughly speaking?
Bulk of them are very young, always not more than early mid 20s. We've not had someone. There would be an odd case of somebody who would be 30, some leadership positions, but that's it. They are all very young. Not only this, Ranveer, I have always said this in Kashmir, even in stone pelting, whenever people get hurt because of the police firing tear gas shells, pellet guns, it's only the youngsters who are injured. If everyone is so fired up for Kashmir, why don't we have anyone in his 30s being injured? Because they put youngsters ahead. None of them come ahead.
Yeah, I think one of the curses of being young as a human being is that you have an inherent sense of aggression that you want to channelize somewhere. Now, if that is combined with intoxication as well as brainwashing, as well as the power of religious radicalization, that's a very bad combination.
That exactly, you hit the nail on the head. Ranveer, that exactly is what the the separatists, the ISI make use of.
Okay. Could we break down the story a little bit more from the 90s to the 2000s as
Right.
well? I'm also, just to make it clear, I don't mean to make this a conversation that has any kind of religious fervor. But for the sake of further understanding, I want to talk about the Kashmiri Pandit exodus
Yes.
from your eyes and how it is or is not linked to the work of the ISI and the top Pakistani military leadership.
Right. In fact, I'll be happy to talk about this since I've written it in my book, A General Reminiscence. See,
With some context for the global audience.
yeah. So, like I said earlier, 1988 onwards, terrorism started in earnest in the Kashmir Valley. And terrorist violence was also one of the apparent aims was also to perpetrate violence to, to create bring about a demographic change, because Kashmiri Pandits, who are a very integral part of the Kashmiri culture, and it's a very beautiful syncretic culture of Hindu, Muslim, Sikhs, which is called Kashmiriyat.
But they live together in harmony.
They lived in harmony. They participated in each other's festivals. Shivratri, the Muslims still say Herat Mubarak. They lived with each other, and they participated in each other's functions. So, in the terrorists actually started targeting Kashmiri Pandits more than others. They wanted an exodus. There are about 5 lakhs plus, approximately. I will point out the date. It was 19th January 1990. On that particular day, there was a concerted attack against Kashmiri Pandits in all over the countryside. The mosques were blaring messages. There were very nasty messages being announced on the loudspeakers of the mosques, saying all Kashmiri, they would say, all Kashmiri men go away, leave your women here, and things like that. So there was a mass exodus that started on 19th of January. So that is something which really changed the demography, because Kashmiri Pandits then in larger numbers went away to Jammu, other parts of the Jammu region. They were in the refugee camps for a long time. Some who had better means and could afford it went away to Delhi or other places. But the people who couldn't were in such, they lived in very poor and miserable conditions for years. Coming back to the terrorism. And so it continued during the 90s. By mid 90s, like I told you earlier, 1990, then our response started. We raised Rashtriya Rifles as which is now the largest counter-terrorism force in the world. We raised Ikhwan, the surrendered terrorist organization. So we started getting better of the terrorists. Our counter-terrorism grid was very strong.
I'm sorry, sir, but in the early 90s, why didn't the Indian government step in and try taking stronger actions?
So we did. That's exactly what I'm saying. President's rule it's that time that we had president's rule. The state assemblies were dissolved. Till 1996, there was no state assembly. So we actually took harsh measures after all this happened. And in the next 5 to 6 years, we got a very strong counter-terrorism grid by Rashtriya Rifles. I told you the Ikhwan, intelligence agencies, and it became so tough for terrorists to operate that in 1996, somewhere there, they actually moved. The infiltration actually moved south of Pir Panjal, because earlier the focus was not on south of Pir Panjal, the region of Punch, Rajouri, and those are the areas that terrorists would infiltrate from. I have personally operated in that area. I commanded my battalion for 3 years, from 1998 to 2001, on the higher reaches of Punch. The Pir Panjal mountain range actually separates the Kashmir region in the north to Jammu region in the south. And there, the terrorists would always infiltrate from here, but then their ultimate destination was the valley. They would like to go to Kashmir Valley. When mobile services started, then we got electronic intelligence as far as intelligence agencies are concerned. But the terrorists started using that also as an enabler.
To talk to Pakistani generals?
To use to talk to their handlers, if not the generals, certainly the ISI handlers. So they had direct communication. Their communications became so much easier, all difficult to intercept. And also, it was a good means of radicalization. Today, a mobile phone is a good means of spreading any propaganda. It is a good means of radicalizing the youth. And when we had this Jasmine Revolution in 2001, 11, 12 in the Arab countries, so the Arab Spring, as it is known in different countries, they use the power of WhatsApp and social media. They started using that as well. They started using not only for communication, the terrorists started using mobiles, not only for communication, but also for mobilizing rapidly, also for radicalization. Um, then in 2000, coming back in 2009, 10, and 11, the terrorists started using stone pelting. They drew lessons from the second Palestine Intifada of 2006, and where stone pelting proved to be very effective. Why effective? Because the Western countries see stone pelting as an unarmed rebellion. They may not be armed, but they are not non-violent.
It makes it look like, in terms of the aesthetics of it, it
Yes.
makes it look like the locals are frustrated with the military and want them out.
That's exactly what they wanted to do. Create that impression. That's what Palestinians did against the Israeli military. So they took a leaf out of their playbook and they started using it. But for initial years, 2009, 10, 11, I was there, and the stone pelting was isolated by itself, not in concert with the terrorists, not in concert with terrorist violence. But then in 2014-15, in 2015, I went back as Corps Commander of Kashmir, and we saw a big change. In 2014, till 2014, they would always cover their faces with a veil when they resorted to stone pelting or any such acts, so that they couldn't be identified by the police. But in 2015, I still recall, it was July 2015, Burhan Wani with 9 of his friends posted his picture. They posted their group photo with AK rifles on their Facebook page.
So I'm not exactly understanding why you highlighted the stone pelting thing as such an important part of the timeline.
Yes.
I understand that it changes global PR for how people perceive the Kashmir Valley and the Kashmir issue. But why, as a military veteran, are you mentioning it?
Yeah, because my next step is that. When I went back as Corps Commander, I said to you earlier that stone pelting was in isolation. It was not in concert with terrorist violence. By the time I went as Corps Commander, by the time this change came that they started using social media as an enabler, putting the face photographs on Facebook so that they could be identified, that is the time this stone pelting started happening along with encounters against terrorists. Whenever there was terrorists were holed up somewhere, earlier in my younger days as a major, as a colonel, when security forces went into a village where we had information of terrorists, when the people would actually pull their children indoors and they would lock their doors. They did not want to meet the security forces. The shift is that when I went back as Corps Commander, I'm talking about 2015, that is the time when, using the mobiles, the people would actually mobilize support, and youngsters would rush out to block the army convoys, to block our troops going in, start pelting stones at them. The mosques would actually come out with the warnings to the terrorists on their loudspeakers. So this is why I started mentioning stone pelting, because they helped terrorists escape at times.
As in, the locals were supporting
Yes.
the insurgency.
Yes, a large part of Kashmir then was very alienated. Was alienated, and that local support is the oxygen for terrorists always.
Are you talking about Srinagar or the countryside or both?
Both.
Oh my God. Okay. I'm going to take a break from our narrative and give some civilian human narrative here. A year and a half ago, when I went to Kashmir, I found some of the best human beings I've ever come across anywhere that I've traveled all over the
Yes.
world. Very welcoming, very hospitable, full of care, full of love for India as well. constant conversations about the Indian cricket team. Of course, you saw a lot of military personnel everywhere, but it was almost like the local Kashmiris had understood that, okay, the military personnel need to be here for the sake of national security, but that's okay, we'll carry on with our life. And they were hoping that tourism increases a lot more. And the one constant that all of them said was, नहीं ये मीडिया सच नहीं दिखाती. The media is constantly lying about how dangerous Kashmir is. But this is before the Pahalgam attack. The reason I'm bringing up this kind of context right now is to wrap my head around 2015, which is just about 10 years ago.
Yes.
And you're saying that the local Kashmiris were actually sort of, in a way, adversarial with the Indian military.
Yes.
A majority of them, at least.
A lot of them, yes.
How did the Indian military handle that situation?
That's a very, it's a very tricky situation to handle, because in the army, we don't have lathis. We don't have tear gas shells. We only have weapons that kill. We are taught how to shoot to kill, right? So we cannot use those weapons against a stone pelting mob, and they know it. See, that's why they started using it. That is why it was. I have written stories in this book about Captain Pavan, whose jaw was broken, wired up. I met him in the hospital. And Havaldar lost his eye because of stone pelting, because we have to just try and extricate ourselves. You know, the such violent acts shake you up. It's very difficult for the commander to extricate their troops to safety. It's very difficult to face your troops. Why can't we open fire at them? But we don't. It is the police that or CRPF that uses tear gas shells, pellet guns, and those anti-riot material. They have it, right? So that increases our challenge manifold. Now, when they started using both in concert, and that is the time when there was a lot of alienation, like I brought out. In 2016, on 8th of July precisely, I remember it was 2 days after Eid, that we eliminated Burhan Wani. You remember I told you in 2015, he put his picture on the Facebook, he became a youth icon, and he would post videos and photographs of it on the social media, and he became an icon. We eliminated him in July 2016, and the valley burnt for 3 to 4 months. There was such violence on the streets, not terrorist violence. It was stone pelting, arson, setting things on fire, and such like things. So that is the kind of power of mobilizing people that the handlers from across have actually been crafting this very steady.
What brought all those people together and what fired them up?
Radicalization. There are so many madrasas. Madrasas have grown by the thousands there. So they spin a narrative where a Muslim boy is actually then radicalized to fight, and he thinks he's been told, he thinks he's doing a holy jihad. He's been told that even if you die while fighting with the security forces, you will be granted heaven. You will get 72 hoors. I mean, that is their tagline. So a lot of them, that kind of narrative is being peddled by the separatists, at so many places by the mosques, by the religious teachers, and there was a big divide amongst those who would do stone pelting and those who didn't want to participate in stone pelting were threatened. In their villages, youngsters would actually stone their houses if they didn't do it.
And this is Muslim versus Muslim.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So I'm trying to empathize for a moment with the youth that was radicalized at that point, because they'd probably be my age. I was about 23 at the time.
Yes.
And I've met those same guys who are my age now, who are working as skiing instructors in Gulmarg and drivers who take you from one town to another. And they welcome all of us who are not from Kashmir.
Yes.
So I'm trying to empathize with them at that point. I'm sure there's many who've transitioned into being hospitable, welcoming, professional?
This is the kind of initiatives we take in the army. In my stint there, I I actually opened 66 youth clubs. We wanted to get the youth to give them a creative outlet for their energies, and we opened a youth clubs in different villages, where a club would essentially have a couple of computers with internet connections, would have some indoor playing games, have a gym, have some library, and such like places where the youth, as you know, you said you're a youth, as what the youth today call hangout. There has to be some place in the evening. If you don't give them a place to so-called hangout, then they would either be radicalized or watch videos. And over there, if you watch a video on, even watch a Bollywood movie, in between you get those injections of radicalization videos. That's the way movies are shown there. That's the way they used to get their message across to the youth.
My question is, why did the military have to do this? Why not the government?
So we made a beginning because military, our reach is in the very remotest of the areas.
Okay.
We are there in villages where there's nobody else. There's not even a post office. There's nothing.
So you had to do the job of bureaucrats as well.
We did. Indian Army runs an operation. We call everything an operation. We call it Operation Sadbhavna. That is goodwill. It means goodwill, as you know. So under this, we are allocated funds to do an outreach to the far-flung areas, where sometimes there is a school and a girl toilet is wanting, and then we create a toilet for the girls, or a small footbridge across a stream where people would have to walk a few kilometers to circumvent it. So small little things like this, and it is under that we made these Chinar Naujawan clubs.
Effectively, you're saying that over the last 10 years, you've had to de-radicalize Kashmir by acting as a bureaucrat when in truth you are the military.
Army has been doing this not for 10 years. We have been doing this for decades. We have been participating in this. We increased our activities recently because we are seeing good spin-offs from them. When you spoke about some ski instructors and people youngsters taking parts in some sports, I'm happy to report that we actually created, or we gave them the training, we gave them the encouragement, sometimes sent out children on goodwill tours to other parts of the country so that they see the world outside. And I would also, to be fair, Army started this. Army takes the lead, but even the CRPF does it now. The police does it now. They also take part in it. So all in all, it's an effort which I feel, like you rightly said, government should do more of that kind of outreach.
Okay. So one of the core concerns for the whole planet is the possibility of nuclear war. But I think it's the perspective of a military vet that matters when it comes to even speaking about nuclear war, because I don't think that the average human being understands the logistics that go into nuclear aspects of war even becoming a possibility. So this is actually an open-ended, so this is pretty much an open-ended question to you, just to shed some light on the possibility of this nuclear aspect. You can take over the conversation, so wherever you wish.
Right. No, you ask a very pertinent question because for the last couple of days, Pakistan has, as we discussed earlier, started pulling out this nuclear card. Call it a nuclear blackmail, if you will. Now, there are 2 or 3 dimensions to it. One is the dimension of actually launching a nuclear weapon. On the other hand, is the dimension of the public opinion. Public opinion within the country, global opinion. Remembering what low spot Pakistan is today, economically, diplomatically, politically. And we'll talk about this one by one. Let me just talk about the military component. First of all, decision to launch a nuclear weapon does not rest in the hand of the Pakistan army chief or the prime minister or any one person for that matter. There is a nuclear command authority. A decision has to be taken by consensus of lawmakers. Even Pakistan has this. If I remember correctly, during General Pervez Musharraf's time, this nuclear command authority was formed. So it's not so simple. How many people will assent to it? Right. That's one aspect. The technical part of launching a nuclear weapon in any country is not kept loaded in one garage and tomorrow you can actually launch it. Different components are kept in different facilities which will be far from each other, different towns and cities, or different bases, military bases. So the components have to be brought together to the launch site. Then they have to be mated. It's a very highly skilled and specialized operation. So it's not possible in a hurry. When these components are moved, the satellites are watching. There is an overwatch from the space. Intelligence agencies are watching. It's not so easy, especially nations like Pakistan, which use this at the drop of the hat, which have radicalization in the government and the military, etc. So there is a big overwatch. So the moment something starts happening, the world will actually clamp down on them. So that's the way to see it. Now, the other aspects are of public opinion. They have to think of public opinion on their side. They have to think of the global public opinion. Pakistan today is considered as an epicenter of terrorism by the world. If it talks in terms of, it does too much of nuclear saber rattling, it will become a global pariah. So, all these dimensions have to be kept in mind before thinking of a credible nuclear threat.
Where are we realistically, sir? Based on whatever you're allowed to say on a public forum. We spoke about the Indus Water Treaty, the Shimla Agreement. This is being recorded on a Tuesday. I believe today is the 29th of April. So
Yes.
as it stands, where are we?
We've already set into motion the Indus Water Treaty suspension. How we take it further, like I told you earlier, it is not a tap that can be turned off, but how we take it further is the question. We've actually put Pakistan on notice. People in Pakistan have started rebelling against their own government as to where you've landed us up into, and things like that. So, the day this was announced, water supply did not reduce. In fact, a couple of days later, because of heavy rains in the valley, water supply increased to Pakistan. But the day it was announced, Sensex of Pakistan fell down by 3,000 points or 6,000 points. I'm forgetting what. So that is the kind of power it has, the sentiment. And when it starts hurting the farmers, it will be more. So that has been announced. The other diplomatic measures have only add to the low diplomatic relations already existing or non-existing between the two countries. Like I said earlier, military option is open. To my mind, it will come. There will be a significant response. What shape it takes, we don't know, because it is not 2016 anymore when we launched the surgical strike, a shallow surgical strike. Today, there are many enablers. There are drones. There is artificial intelligence. Space is a big player. Cyber is a big player. There are so many domains that it cuts across. I've still not touched upon the military, navy, the air force component, where we have a multifarious capabilities, precision guided missiles. There are so many things that will happen. Very precise targeting is possible. So all that put together, it's a very potent mix. We'll have to wait and watch as to what happens on this.
I'm sure there's Pakistani military officials watching this episode.
Yes.
And I would like for them to hear your opinion. But also think of the rebellions happening in Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. What are they going to do if it's actually a triangulated challenge?
I wouldn't like to be in the shoes of the Pakistan military or the government now. They are truly in an unenviable spot.
Would you like to say anything about all those Pakistani soldiers who are apparently resigning but are being forced to not resign?
What can I say? I think it's almost like if an there has been an outpouring of sentiment also in the saner element of Pakistan, saying that I remember one Major Adil Raja has written Raja or Raza has written an article which I read yesterday, and he comes out speaking against the policies. Earlier also I've read his articles, and he says India is in illegal occupation of Kashmir and all that, but this is not the way to wage a war. We don't kill innocent people. We don't use terrorism, and so on and so forth. So there are voices which say that this is not the way to do things. So to the soldiers, I would only like to say that if their conscience tells them that this is not a just order to be executed, I think then they're doing the right thing.
I think we're at the end of this episode, sir. Very important episode, especially for the Indian audiences. Do you have any signing off notes for them as well as the global audience, as well as Pakistani audiences who've listened to this entire piece?
To the global audience and the Pakistani audience, I would like to urge the global community to and the Pakistanis to see the senselessness of this thing, of waging a proxy war, of killing each other senselessly. We can, earlier we have, and we can actually live side by side. There is enough space for both of us. To the Indian audience, I will actually urge or repeat my request that I made earlier. On one hand, we should not fall prey to the designs set out by the terrorists of creating a Hindu-Muslim divide in our country. Otherwise, they would have succeeded. The terrorists would have succeeded. And we need to support the Kashmiri people who have invested so much in tourism in the last 5 years. And it is not only tourism, it is also when tourists go there by the hordes, the people and realize that how hospitable the common people of Kashmir are. The people of Kashmir actually get more and more integrated with people of India, the idea of India. And I think it's our duty now to come out in support for them. As summer vacations begin, I think I would urge more and more tourists to have faith. Many have actually started going to show solidarity. We have to defeat the terrorist design, and more tourists should go to Kashmir. Celebrities should go. I saw the Bollywood actor Sunil Shetty has put out a Facebook post saying that I am going. No one can stop me from going to Kashmir. I would urge influencers like you to speak out like this to your viewers. In fact, I'll invite you. I do motorcycle trips. Let's do a motorcycle trip together in Kashmir. A general and a influencer. We'll do that.
Done, sir. Would love
Right.
to.
Yes.
Love to be a part of it.
Right.
I genuinely believe Kashmir is the number one travel destination in India, and I've traveled across the country. Love my country. Love all the different pockets I've visited.
Yes.
Kashmir is special. Heartbreaking that this happened, but if there are Kashmiris watching this, I just want to say that there's a lot of Indians who stand in solidarity with you as well. So we will ensure that Kashmir tourism doesn't get as affected as one would theoretically believe. So thank you for this episode today. And before I let you go, I will salute you for all your years in service.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's because of gentlemen like you that people like all of us, the viewers in India especially, feel a sense of safety. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Ranveer, for inviting me. Jai Hind.
Giants. That was the episode for today, ladies and gentlemen. We'll also link some more relevant episodes in the description box. If you're a global listener, please let me know what you thought of this particular episode. We intend on doing a lot more geopolitical content. Suggest some guests, suggest some topics. What would you like to know about the current ongoing India Pakistan conflict? What would you like to know about the Indian perspective on geopolitics? Send in your suggestions, send in your comments. And if you're an Indian watching this particular video, I sincerely hope you share it on every possible WhatsApp group. If you're a Pakistani listener listening into this, remember that the intention was not to offend you in any way, but the intention was to call out the Pakistani military. Sorry if I hurt anyone's sentiments, but the truth must be spoken by the modern day content creator. Thank you for listening in. Lots more coming your way. And for the Indian military professionals watching this, Jai Hind, the whole country is behind you.